Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing good. So today we are going to look at the longest substring with no more than two distinct characters problem. It's a problem that's commonly asked in Microsoft and Amazon. So let's get started. So first let's go over the question. Given a string yes, return the length of the longest substring that contains at most two distinct characters. So this means that you're going to find the longest substring that contains maximum two distinct characters. There can be any number of repeated characters, but there's going to be only two distinct characters. So let's go over the examples to understand it even better. We are starting with E, so there's one distinct character. C, two distinct characters. E, so E is repeating, so there we are still left with two distinct characters and the length is 3. Okay, B, and now we are left with three distinct characters, which is not allowed, right? So we are going to discard one of the characters. So E is getting discarded. Now we are still having three distinct characters in our substring C, E, B, which is still not allowed. So you're cutting one more character and you're left with E and B. It is distinct and there's only two distinct characters and the length is 2. Okay, so now we go to A. And now we are again having three distinct characters, which is not allowed. So we are going to discard one of the character E, the starting character. So now we are left with B and A. So it's just two distinct characters, which is allowed, and the length is 2. However, ECE at the maximum length 3, and that's what we are going to return. Now the second example. So let's start. C, one distinct character. C is repeating, so you can go ahead. A distinct character, so now you have two distinct characters. A, it's not a distinct character, so you still have two distinct characters and the length is 1 2 3 4, so the length is 4. The substring's length is 4. Okay, now you move on and you are facing B, and now there are three distinct characters, which is not allowed. So you're going to discard the first element, and now you still have three distinct characters C, A and B, right? So you're going to discard another element and you're left with two distinct characters now, right? A and B. Okay, and you can move on like next character. So it's B, right? It's not a distinct character, so you're left with two distinct characters B, and you're again left with only two distinct characters, so which is allowed, and the length of this is going to be 5. A, B, 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 and the previous one which we found, I think it had the length 4, so 5 is the maximum and you're returning 5. Now that we saw the examples, let's pick one example and go over our approach before moving on to the coding part. So I'm going to use a sliding window approach to solve this problem. And if you have not watched my sliding window concept video, then I request you to first go over that video because it will be easier for you to understand. So let's get started with the approach. So I'm going to have a variable called maximum length, and this is what we would be returning, and it's going to be initialized to a minimum value. Then we are going to have two variables called window start and window end. So window start is going to point to the first character in our substring, and window end is going to iterate over the characters in our string. And we need a data structure that keeps track of the number of unique characters that we encounter and the number of times that the unique character is repeated in our substring, right? So for that, I'm going to use a hash map. So the hash map is going to record all the distinct characters and the number of times it's repeated. So the first character that window end is pointing to is E. So E can be put into our hash map. So E is going to be having a value of 1. Okay, and maximum length is going to be updated to 1. And now we can increment our window end. So the next character is C. Okay, C is a unique character, so it should be put into our hash map. So C is going to have a value of 1. Okay, and the size of the hash map is 2, which means there are two distinct characters and which is allowed. So we are going to update our maximum length. Okay, so the length of this substring is 2, and it's more than the previous maximum length, and so maximum length is going to be updated to 2. And now we are going to increment our window end. Window end is pointing to E. So E is not a unique character because E is already present in our hash map. So we are going to increment the value of E. Okay. So now E is going to be having the value 2. Okay. And the size of hash map is 2, which means there are only 2 distinct characters and it is allowed. So we are going to update the maximum length. So the number of characters in this substring is 3, right? So it's greater, so I'm going to update it to 3. Okay, and now I can increment the window end to the next character. The next character is B, right? And B is not unique, so we have to put it in a hash map. So now if you see, the hash map size is 3, right? Which means there are 3 distinct characters, which is not allowed. So it's time to apply a sliding window approach and shrink the window. Okay, so how do we shrink the window? We eliminate the character that window start is pointing to, right? So for that, if you see, window start is pointing to E, and that's the character that we are going to eliminate. And now we'll decrement the value of E in our hash map. So E will be having value 1, and we are also going to increment the window start to point to the next character. So window start is now pointing to C. So now if you see, the size of hash map is 3, which means there are still 3 distinct characters in our hash map. So we need to further shrink our window, right? And for that, if we see, window start is pointing to C, and that's the element that we are going to eliminate. C is going to be eliminated and the value of C is going to be decremented. It is going to be decremented to 0 and it can be removed from our hash map, right? So C is going to be removed. Okay, and now we have to increment our window start to point to next element. The hash map size is 2, which means there are only 2 distinct characters, which is allowed. So it's time to update our maximum length. So the maximum length is the number of characters in our substring, which is 2 right now. But we already found the greater maximum length, which is 3, so it's going to remain as 3. So now window end is going to be incremented. So window end is going to point to A. Since A is unique, I'm going to put it into our hash map. So A is going to have a value 1. Okay. So if you see, the size of our hash map is 3, right? So which means there are 3 distinct characters, which is not allowed, and it's time to shrink our window. So for that, window start is pointing to E, which means that's the element that we are going to eliminate. So E is going to be eliminated and we are going to decrement the value of E in our hash map. E is going to be 0 now. Window start will be moving to the next character. So window start is now pointing to B. Okay, so now if you see, the size of our hash map is 2, which means there are only 2 distinct characters, and which is allowed. So it's time to update our maximum length. So there are 2 characters in our substring, but we already found a greater value 3, and that's what it's going to have, and 3 is what we are going to return out of this. So this is exactly what we are going to do in our coding part. If you had understood this walkthrough, then coding is going to be simple and easier. So let's get straight into it. So as mentioned in our approach walkthrough, I'm going to have a variable called maximum length, which I'll be returning, and it's going to be initialized to minimum value. And then I'm going to have a variable called window start, and it's going to be initialized to the starting of our string. So I need to have a data structure where I can record the distinct characters and the number of times each character is repeated, right? So as mentioned, I'm going to use a hash map, and it's going to be a character and integer combination, and I'm going to call it map. But I'm going to have a for loop, and I'm going to have a variable called window end, which is what is going to be iterating over the array, and window end should be lesser than the length of the string, right? And window end is going to be incremented. So the character is going to be s.char at window end. So now what we have to do is we have to put the character inside the map. If it is a unique character, then it will be inserted. If it is not a unique character, then the integer value, that is recording the number of times that the character was is present, will be incremented. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. Return. Okay, now we are going to check the hash map size. Okay, so if the hash map size is more than 2, it means there are 3 distinct characters. Okay, so we are going to check the size of our hash map. So if this is greater than 2, it means there are 3 distinct characters, so we have to shrink our window. Okay, how would we shrink our window? Whichever character window start is pointing to, only that we have to remove from a hash map, right? We have to either remove it or decrement the value of the character, right? So first let's get the value window start. So this will give us the number of times that this particular character that window start is pointing to is having. So then what we are going to do is, okay, so what this would do is it will decrement the character's value. Okay, and then if at all this value is 0 now after decrementing, it means it's time to remove that element from our hash map. And then we can move our window start to point to the next element, right? And once this is done, we'll be updating our maximum length. So maximum length would be maximum of max length and the number of characters in our substring. So window n minus window start plus 1. Okay, and maximum length is what we are going to return. So let's go over the problem before we submit it. So we have a maximum length and this is going to be initialized to the minimum value, and maximum length is what we are going to return. Okay, and we'll be having a variable called window start, and we have a hash map which is going to record the unique characters and the number of times that each character is repeated. So that is what is initialized here, and our for loop is going to iterate over each character in the string, and every time we come across a unique character, we are going to put it inside our map. If at all it's not a unique character, then we are going to increment the value of the character, like how many times it's encountered. If the size of the map is greater than 2, it means the distinct characters is more than 2, and in that case we are going to shrink our window. How would we shrink our window? We are going to eliminate the character that window start is pointing to. So that's what we are doing here. We are getting the value of window start from the map, and we are decrementing the value of that. Okay, and if the value is 0, it means the character can be removed from the map, and that's what we are doing. And then we shift our window start to the next element. Okay, and every time we are also updating the maximum length. Okay, let's submit this. Okay, so the time complexity is going to be big of n for this program, and the space complexity is going to be big of k, because we'll be storing k plus 1 characters in our hash map. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this video was helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and let's meet soon with another coding video. Bye.